Right. All right, everyone, please feel free to have a seat. We'll be getting started shortly with the presidential debate for the presidential candidates for the SMUSA election. Before we do start with the debate itself, we will be having a few speakers speak before them. First and foremost, we will be inviting Dr. John Gillis, and we will also be inviting speakers from the Dash Fund to come and present their initiative. Before I invite John over to the podium, if you will, I'd just like to talk about who he is and what he has done throughout his career. So John is a physician, entrepreneur, and political activist who resides in Halifax. He runs the Center for Pain Management Halifax, is a co-owner or Signature Health, a corporate wellness business, and works at the Dartmouth General ER. John served as president of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party and concurrently as a member of the board of directors of the Liberal Party of Canada from 2010 to 2018. John serves on the board of Rugby Nova Scotia, is chair of the Halifax Stars Rugby Club, and does a weekly segment on News 95.7 called House Calls. So he certainly has quite the lengthy experience, Sarah, and I would like to invite him to have a few words with you folks, Sarah. So big round of applause, please.
Folks, can everybody hear me there okay? Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Paula for inviting me, and thank all of you for your interest in activism. Paul asked me just to say a few words about my experiences in politics, what they've meant to me and why I think it's important for all of you. Clearly you're here and you're engaged, and that's a wonderful thing. And, looking around the room, the first thing I see in front of me is diversity. I see men and women, I see people of different backgrounds, and that's critically important. The world has too many old white guys like me, and we really need diversity in our world, people who will engage and be truly representative of our population on a go-forward basis. That's very important. So, as you sit here looking at student politics, there's a lot going on in the world. How can you make a difference? And the answer is there are so many ways to make a difference. I'll talk to you about a few of the things that I've been through, some of which I worked for, some of which I fell into. The most important thing, coming back to it, is to engage and to care and make an effort. Because if you don't, just look around the world right now at the mess that we see, particularly in the United States, but elsewhere. The rise of extremism, the rise of autocracy, and people who do not respect engagement, democracy, and traditions that we, I think, thought were normal. But the reality is how did society like the United States get there? It's a complicated question we could spend days on, but part of it is everyone just assumed it would be okay. People did not engage, they did not fight back, they did not say something when these alarming trends around autocracy, taking away women's rights, racism, and so many other topics have come before us. And if we all don't say something, that could happen here, but it starts with your generation, the activists who can engage for us. So my involvement in the political world, I was sort of born into it. My father was an MLA. He was elected before I was born, so I didn't have much choice. But having been around the political party, I sort of chose to engage. And the reason I did was because I met a lot of people, a lot of interesting people who taught me a lot about engaging in government, engaging in society. And I learned from that. Sometimes we have a very narrow view of what we want to do. I decided early that I wanted to do medicine, and I've been very pleased with that. But by getting involved with a political party, I was able to see other things, other parts of the world, other views, other visions, and that's very important. So how can you make a difference? The first thing that I'd like to talk a little bit about. I was 20 years old. I'd just been elected as a vice president of the Young Liberals of Canada. And there was a gay marriage resolution coming to the Liberal Party National Congress in Ottawa. This was a long time ago, probably before some of you were born, most of you were born, 1994. And, some of the folks that were involved with that motion asked me to bring it to the floor. And I'll never forget the experience. I asked them why. They felt I fit a demographic, and I could explain the thing well, maybe to more conservative elements, and I could present it well. And I'll never forget it. You know, I got called all kinds of names. I got booed. The chairman of the meeting broke the rules of the convention and split our resolution. And it was a very eye-opening moment just to see, you know, how that went down, how even then people reacted towards equal rights, you know, towards gay marriage, and how, you know, some terrible things were said, you know, to me, to some of my colleagues and others. But what we did with that, we lost that day, but we brought it again in 2 years later, narrowly lost. 4 years later, it was passed, and a follow-on here in Nova Scotia. And another moment I won't forget, when I, you know, moved back here a few years later, when it was being debated here in Halifax at a party convention. You know, there was a bit of back and forth, and an older gentleman who was a pastor got up, and, you know, people kind of held their breath. What's he going to say? And what he said was, you know, we've come a long way together. The youth have driven this, have opened our eyes, have opened my eyes, and, you know, I stand with you. Let's vote for this. And it was passed unanimously. You know, in a room full of a lot of older, rural men and women from Nova Scotia, who a couple years before wouldn't have been ready to do this. But engagement by our group, people across the country, moved the needle. And, you know, it took a little while to become the law of the land, but change can truly happen. And it was driven by us. You know, we rammed this through the convention. We had everybody out of bed and we were ready to go. Fast forward another 10 years, you know, I won't take any credit for this one, but we helped when the Young Liberals of Canada, you know, drove legalized cannabis, legalized weed, you know, through the party Congress. Again, taking something that was maybe a fringe issue, making it a mainstream issue, but really bringing the science and the sensibility to the floor, not just coming off as we want weed legal so we can smoke it. It's we want legal because it's actually medicine. It should be regulated. There should be revenue from it, and a, you know, very cogent, intelligent argument was brought to the floor by the Young Liberals of Canada, and people got on board. And again, something that has moved the needle, you know, something that became law of the land by activism from youth. And that those may not be your issues, but whatever your issues are, if you stick together and believe in it and build connections, you can make anything happen. And I think that's another key piece here. You don't have to be a member of a political party. You don't have to be a liberal. I have friends from all political parties. There are people that engage in different ways in community activism. But what the common denominator is, as you engage, you build contacts, you meet more people, you understand process, you understand the law, you understand how to make things happen. Sometimes it's very process driven, sometimes it's not. One of my other favorite moments is at the skating rink you see there on the Oval. I actually live across the street from it. And when they built that thing, they were going to tear it down. Some of you may know this, but it was so popular, people wanted to keep it. Well, 6 of us formed a committee and basically fought Mayor Kelly and said, we're going to raise the money. This thing isn't going anywhere. And that was just activism of citizens. I didn't know these people before I called one of them up and said, can I help you guys? We got together, we engaged thousands of residents. We got $1 million from Molson and Emera. And we basically, you know, made the city an offer they couldn't refuse. It combination of understanding the process, raising the money, but also, frankly, learning to use the media to keep this issue so front and center with something that was so popular, you know, for young and old, men and women, people of all backgrounds out there skating and enjoying this. You know, the experiences over the years, you know, taught us how to do some of these things. So sometimes you have the best idea in the world, but if you don't know how to put it out there, you don't know how to keep it in the media. You know, sometimes politicians need a little bit of a nudge to do the right thing. And again, there are different ways to do that. But again, comes back to activism, building those connections. And, you know, I could probably talk about a few more things that I've been involved with. We built a rugby club in Spryfield, which, you know, change rooms and a banquet hall, you know, for use by the rugby community, but also for use in an underserviced part of Halifax with very little infrastructure that is now used as a community center. Different groups rent it. But again, the the impetus behind that started with, we need something here, but we know who to talk to in municipal, provincial, federal governments. But we also understand that we have to have a broader view, that we're not just building a building for just us, we're building something for this community. And in turn, in making that argument to the levels of government, that's what won the day. And again, it just comes back to building connections over the years, but also learning and understanding, how government works, how funding works, how process works, how the media works, and trying to put that all together to do positive things. So all of you may have something that's big for you. Embrace it and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, even at the university level. Tell you another quick one. I guess I'm just full of stories tonight. When I was finishing, graduated from medical school at Western in London, Ontario, and coming to the end of that year, some bright light in the university administration decided they were going to charge medical residents tuition as well. So medical resident is, you got your degree, you're in the hospital, you're getting paid a salary, but you're doing all the rotten work, up all night, terrible hours, all that stuff. Somebody came up with the bright idea that they needed more money. They were going to try and charge us thousands of dollars. We were quite insulted by that. But again, instead of, moaning about it and doing nothing, we went and met every single member of the university senate. We had music professors who were well-versed in medical politics by the end of it, and we beat the administration. We voted them down on the Senate floor, and they pulled the initiative. But because students, my colleagues, my friends, went out and one by one met members of the university senate, and people said, there's no way you're going to change their mind. They never backed down. Well, persistence, sticking with it, believing in it, strength in numbers, it worked. And all of you, have that power. So whoever becomes the next president, I certainly wish the best of luck tonight in this debate. And whether you win or lose, stay engaged and keep being engaged. There are so many people that I've seen over the years come through student politics here and elsewhere. Zach Churchill is a good friend of mine. Unfortunately, didn't make it this last election, but he's given so much to public life in this province as a former SMUSA president. And there are many others, but whether you're the president, whether you're on the executive, or whether you're just supporting the process, there's a long runway ahead. And as I said at the beginning, it's not just for old white guys to run the world anymore. It's for all of you. And the precedent is there, the process is there. If you take it, you can own it and you can run it. And I'm just so proud to see so many people here engaged in this process. So that's all I have to say. I want to thank you. And if anyone has any questions, I can take them, but otherwise I'll let you get on with your debate.
All right, so thank you to Dr. John here for his speech here. Now I'd like to invite speakers from the Dash Fund to come and talk to the audience for a few minutes there, and they'll talk about what their program is about, and they'll take any questions that the audience may have. So please welcome the Dash Fund.
Perfect. All
We
right.
are the Dash Fund. Just call us the Dash Fund.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, folks. I recognize a lot of familiar faces out there. My name is Mitchell Archibald. With me, I have Sadie McAleer. I'm the Executive Director of Student Housing Nova Scotia. Sadie is our campaign manager for the Dash Fund. Obviously, you're here to see your presidential candidates tonight. We won't take up very much of your time. But tonight we want to just give you, the students, a little bit more of an information about what the Dash Fund is and why you should care and how it relates to this election. So we're running the Dash Fund campaign here at SMU during this election, which means it's going to be a question that's going to come up on your ballot along with your presidential and board of directors candidates. We don't have a lot of time tonight, so we're going to be really brief and kind of give you the overview, and we hope that you'll visit our website to learn more. Or visit our event on Wednesday night that we'll tell you a bit more about here in a minute. But the Dash Fund stands for the Developing Affordable Student Housing Fund. And again, we as Student Housing Nova Scotia are implementing this initiative. It just passed at Acadia in their election last week. So we're really excited to bring that here. And basically what we do as an organization is we're a nonprofit student housing organization, primarily focused on developing either through building or buying more housing for students that they can afford. A challenge with doing that as a small nonprofit is that developing housing costs a lot of money, and the only method we have for developing new housing is raising rent, and that's not something that we're willing or able to do. And so the alternative, after a few years of work and trying to decide how we can best do that, is through the Dash Fund. And so the Dash Fund helps support building and buying housing for students through an additional student contribution of $5 per semester. So basically how this would work is if this is approved in this election, every student would contribute as part of their overall kind of student fees starting next year, $5 per semester towards this fund. And that would be used to basically start up projects. The best way I can describe it is as almost like a down payment. And the great part about this and what we're able to do with the provincial government and federal government is basically use this down payment with a bunch of different affordable housing initiatives, which means that every single dollar contributed by students means we can build or buy $20 worth of housing. So that $5 per semester per student just here at SMU alone turns into over $50,000 a year in terms of Dash Fund contributions, which can turn it over $1 million a year in housing. It's something that's really important to us, and it's really important, I think, for the students that we've spoken to. We've got a lot of support because they know what the impact can be. On average, the units we have, we've had units in Halifax in the past, and we have units in Wolfville right now. Usually, on average, they are about $250 to $500 less a month than like the average that you're seeing on Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, places for students. And that's around the range that we aim for. If you go look on one of our most recent Instagram posts at Student Housing NS on Instagram, it compared one of our units that were available to all the other available units in Wolfville, and they were between $200 and $600 less than what the market rates, and that was as of like 2 weeks ago when that was posted. Another really important thing about the Dash Fund is really it's a long-term initiative, and we've talked a lot about this. I see a lot of our campaign ambassadors here in the room, so if you want to, I don't know if you guys want to wave, but feel free to go speak to them as well throughout this week. But ultimately, this is something that's going to benefit students really long into the future. Over the next 5 years, it could mean over $5 million for development and new housing for students. And ultimately, in addition to that, we'll be taking 10% of all the funds that are contributed by students and putting that back into until the first project is built to housing supports for students. So your question might be, what are students going to benefit from right now until housing projects are finished? And essentially, that will be through taking 10% of that, putting it back into housing supports that might go to students like you who might be struggling to pay rent, who might be struggling because your landlord has evicted you. But ultimately, those are some of the things. Again, I would look at dashfund.ca, so dashfund.ca. It has some more of the information. But ultimately, we feel this will bring a brighter and more affordable future for students for really less than the cost of lunch. I went to get a chicken Caesar wrap at the Student Center today. It was like $8.50 plus tax. That's pretty much your entire contribution. That's right there. It's really not a significant amount of money, but it has will have really a significant impact overall. So we tried to make this a really brief amount of information. Obviously, there's a lot more. We'll be holding a kind of fireside chat Q&A event from 4 to 6 in the Student Center on Wednesday. There will be food and snacks there. So you're welcome to come, and we would invite all the candidates to come because we'd love a chance to give you the information and help you kind of answer questions to students. Obviously, there's not 5,000 students in the room, so there's still a lot more folks to inform, but I think there's some time for a few questions if folks have them. And then again, happy to connect with you offline as well. Anything to add, Sadie, I guess, before we jump into questions?
Maybe I'll just add, like, we were just at Acadia campaigning throughout their ASU student union elections a couple weeks ago now, and like Mitchell said, it passed, which was really amazing. And I think it's the start of something really great. I personally participated in student union advocacy for 4 years and recently graduated, and I wouldn't be back doing this if I didn't believe it was a genuine cause that is going to really support students. The short-term benefits, like Mitchell said, this is a long-term initiative, and I think one of the main messages that we've been trying to drive forward is imagine if students voted yes for something like this 10 or even 20 years ago. We're basing this off a model that has already currently been in action for over a decade based out of Quebec and now has over 1,000 units. And schools are actually seeking out this organization to build student properties for them because it's so well utilized by the student population. And they've seen such a benefit for students in terms of accessing not only affordable housing, but safe housing, because as a nonprofit, our mission is to not only ensure that students affordability is at the forefront of housing, but also we know the struggles. Like, I was just a student for 5 years, and I know the struggle of not getting to connect with your landlord for weeks on end when you have things that are broken in your house, or there's a leak and you need help fixing it, or you have an absurd amount of mold or maybe rodents living in your house and you don't know how to get rid of them. I've heard all of those issues and have experienced them myself as well. And these are things that are embedded within our values and mission as a nonprofit organization, is to ensure not only the affordability, but also we're taking care of you as a whole person, because we see you as more than your money to exploit you in the rental market. So yeah, we're happy to take some questions. And also, apart from our fireside chat on Wednesday night, we'll also be hosting booths on Wednesday and Thursday throughout the entire day from 9 to 5 in the student center on the main floor with our lovely campaign ambassadors who are your fellow students as well. So happy to explain more throughout the rest of the campaign period.
Yeah, go ahead. That's a great question. I'll repeat your question just in case anyone didn't hear it. So it's assuming we have, I think, is the enrollment now like 6,000? I'm going to say 5,000 for easy mental math. So assuming we have 5,000, where does the money go? So that's a really great question. I don't want to keep directing folks to our website. I'm just trying to keep it as brief as we can. But essentially, how that works is we'll be working with SMUSA. So I don't want to plug SMUSA too much, but essentially what we will be doing after this passes is there'll actually be kind of a, I would say, an arm's length like advisory body put together, basically based on representatives from the different funders. So like at the Acadia Students Union, SMUSA, any campus that signs on. So we only actually get the money once we have a project where we've brought it to SMUSA and really to the students. So one of the key parts of this is actually hearing from students and what they want. So it's going to be very different in Wolfville than it will be in Halifax, than it will be in Cape Breton. And so the really important part for us is that accountability piece. So in order for the funds to actually get released to us as an organization, we have to basically come to you with, here's the budget, here's the drawings, like here's the actual project from start to finish, here's how much the rent's going to be for students. And ultimately it will be up to, in this case, SMUSA, or however SMUSA wants to structure that accountability, but ultimately students elected by the students will be the ones deciding and having the final say on this project. So if we bring a project and say, that doesn't work for us, maybe it's a bunch of 1 bedrooms and students want 2 and 3 bedrooms. Maybe they're not like, maybe they want accessible instead. Maybe there's something different. Then ultimately it's going to be the students who approve of any final concept before the money. We're not just saying give us the money and trust us. Like there's going to be a really robust process. Yeah. I would say to an extent. Again, this is something that we're doing for the first time. So there's going to be a lot of like relationship building over the next few years. This also will be a longer term process. I think really what it's going to come down to is we're the experts. We've opened our first property in 1967. So we're not a new organization, although we might be new to you. And so we've been doing this a really long time. We feel like we know we're the experts on providing the housing, and you folks are the experts on you and your students and what it is that you want. So I think there'll be a back and forth. I think there's like a level of like input, and then there's like, okay, we're probably not gonna ask for like colors and like finishings, but I think like generally what we want to understand from students is like what you're looking for, and then we can kind of find the best way to deliver that. But That's a great question. We actually just had a like roundtable on this with all of the provincial student leaders of all the student unions last week to have this discussion. Historically, what I can say is that we use a holistic model based on like housing precarity and need. I won't get too into detail, but essentially we ask folks, what's your housing situation now, and like assess things overall. Generally, as an organization, like we were created in the 60s because of different marginalized communities not having access to housing, particularly like students of color and students with families. And so that's why we were actually created. I would say on average at any given time, I would say the minimum is 60% of our attendants generally tend to be international students because the different factors of marginalization that they face, and the different barriers they face, the fact that they're paying, what is it, like 3-4 times as much as domestic students. So their general costs are higher. So we do tend to find that international students are facing more barriers. And so not to say like as a domestic student who Sadie, you just graduated. I mean, I started at SMU 10 years ago. Like we all face those. And so we try to assess things on a case by case basis. However, that's also part of the conversation we have with SMUSA or the students when actually a project comes around. It comes down to what's the selection process that you folks want. Like, is it like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's going to be a bit of a conversation. Like, we have our method we use now, but part of that conversation when we have our project and we propose the rents and the design is also going to be what is the selection process that the student association wants, and how do you want that to look, and maybe we adjust it for school. But generally we focused on like holistic need. Be time for like 2 more questions. Simon? That makes sense. I'm just. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Thanks.
So Mike,
Sorry.
sorry,
You and then you and then you. Okay.
what's the biggest operational issue that the Dash Fund is currently facing, and how could the president of SMUSA contribute to finding solutions?
Good question. I would say like I wouldn't necessarily say we have any operational issues other than it's just getting it passed. So like the Dash Fund is an initiative of student housing NS. I think our greatest barrier is as the ED, like our greatest barrier is just access to capital to develop. Like if you gave me $1 million tomorrow, I'd have it spent by the end of the month, like well maybe the end of next month. In terms of like it's the need is there, like we have the capacity to build, it's just not the cash. And so I think the real thing that the Dash Fund provides us is it's that long-term steady flow of continued investment. And so we can continue to grow and build on that and continue to, it's really kind of like a snowball effect, if that makes sense. So I would say the president of SMUSA, or really the president of any student union or any student leader, regardless of what role you're in, it's really about like advocating for things like this, right? And so I think the biggest thing that, you know, as candidates or as students you can do is really like share this amongst your peers. Like it is a really important initiative. Like my sister is in her first year here. I wish that when I started SMU 10 years ago that we were doing this then so that she would be able to benefit from this now. So it is really like really understanding that like, yes, there are going to be some benefits now, but like the students after you are going to benefit more. Just like I remember when I was on the board of SMUSA and on the board of governors, like we were just finalizing plans for this inspiration hub. And I just walked through it for the first time today, like fully through. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I remember seeing the designs for that. So like, it really is like thinking about the fact that this is going to be a much bigger deal in, you know, 5 or 10 years from now and the impact that can have, and like sharing that with everyone. So you in the third last row, go ahead. Okay. So sorry, what was, so, oh, absolutely. So I would say like it would start in the fall in terms of like the contribution would be added, but that really depends on what we hear from students. So like if we're buying, like if an existing building comes for sale, that's going to be much less expensive than actually building a new one. So it's really going to depend on site. It's going to depend on costs. If Trump's tariffs come in next month, like that's going to change the cost for building for us. So I would say like very market dependent, but like I would say generally we would expect to have like a project identified in the next few years. It's just so like I mean, in 10 years from now, I expect like projects to be built and more to be planned. Like it wouldn't take 10 years to build something, but it will probably take like, if we wanted to build brand new, like high rise, like that's like a 5-year timeline. Smaller buildings take less time. It depends on how long you want to stay, I guess. But I would say like generally that is the challenge. And like to your point, I think that the hardest sell to students is really showing you folks that like this might not, like the likelihood is like someone here might live in one of our properties, but like it's really a longer term vision than that. And again, I wish someone had done this 10 years ago, which means we wouldn't have to be here right now and we'd have, you know, hundreds more units. But I think it really is a visionary like perspective to take and really understand that this is a benefit that students will have for generations. And if someone had done this before, that you folks will be having now. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd build it close to the university, but that requires like land, and like someone needs to be willing to sell you something for us to buy, right? So I would say again, that's part of the conversation we would have with students. Is if something comes up and we think it's worthwhile, we'd pitch it. You might say that's too far, right? Like maybe it's in the north end, or maybe it's in Clayton Park, and say that well, Clayton Park's too far. But like like it depends on what the project is, and it depends on what's the transit route. Like it's so site specific that I think it's really hard to say, but that's why the consultation piece is so important, because ultimately, like we wouldn't be able to build something or buy something without approval. So the students would need to basically, I would say validate that it will actually work for students. Sorry. I wouldn't call it a gamble. I mean, I would say that for every month we look at a project that we don't go forward with because it's not going to work. That's pretty standard real estate. Like we look at stuff all the time. I look at stuff. Am I doing that? We look at buying stuff all the time. It just doesn't make sense when they do the math. It's not gonna be affordable enough for students. I wouldn't say it's not a gamble because there's no money lost until we like actually go through the project. So, but I would say it's really hard to tell you where it's going to be if I can't force that person to sell me that land, and I can't lock in the costs today. So I wouldn't say it's a gamble, but I would say it's understanding that this is pretty fluid and that it's I think that mutual trust between our organization and the student association and students, that there's a model in place that we will all agree to, and that the students would need to agree before anything moves forward. That makes sense. And so I think you have a very back end question. That's a great question. So essentially what the Dash Fund does is it only provides that 5% down payment. So the other 95% or 20 times that is where we get things from the federal government, the provincial government. We also mortgage it. So like we cover those costs in the long run. So like once the down payment is there and we can actually build the project, we then cover those operational costs and operate the property and pay for the mortgage and all those other costs through different programs. So the challenge is all those programs require us to have the 5% cash up front to start. And that's just not something that we can sustainably do while keeping rents low. So that's where you multiply the value, is whatever students are contributing, we're actually building something worth 20 times that. So that's probably time for us, just with respect to your time. Thank you for your questions. These are really great. They help us make sure that our material reflects these things. And again, if you have other questions, dashfund.ca, come see us throughout the week. Come to our Q&A session on Wednesday if you have more questions. And yeah, again, thank you for your time and attention, and best of luck to all the candidates tonight.
All right. Well, thank you very much to the Dash Fund there. It was certainly a nice interactive session there. So now is the time for what most of you came for, and it is the presidential debate for the SMUSA candidates. So I would like to invite all of them to come over to the front. You may go towards the left unless you want to trip on the camera. And then I'm also inviting Paula to step forward. She will be the mediator for the event. So she'll introduce herself and then we'll get started.
Okay. Before we get going, just so you know, you guys are going to have to pass the mic back and forth between each other. The order is already done. See what's coming. Okay, and for the folks here, how this is going to work is we have 4 questions that they've been given time to answer. And they can use 6 minutes to answer all 4 questions. They'll do them, they can divide their 6 minutes up however they want into each of those 4 questions. But they'll be going one at a time. And to start with, they will be introducing themselves. Is that correct? Is that what you guys are expecting? Yep. Oh, sorry, it is 8 minutes. You're right. 6 minutes is tomorrow. Thank you so much. It is 8 minutes for all 4 questions. All right, and so to start, I have a stopwatch. It makes noise, so I'm just gonna warn you that that will happen. Just ignore it so that I can keep track. So first up, we have Lisa. You need help? Here. This is what happens when you get old, you can't see the button.
Hello. Okay, there you go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa. That's Lisa, but with a Z. Also, hi, Mom. I'm, if you don't already know, founder and president of the Formula One Society. Like to push that in. I'm also the chair of the multicultural committee. Sorry, guys. I know you guys get emails from me. If any of your emails starts with hi, Pookie, that's me. And that's me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aiden. I'm the IT director for the Commerce Society, and I'm a resident assistant for SMU residents.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina. I'm from Sierra Leone. I'm a 3rd-year commerce student, and I wear a lot of hats on campus, actually. I'm an RA, a peer success coach, and I also work for the Rest Consent Committee, along with a lot of volunteering, and I'm excited for tonight.
Okay. So now we're gonna go to question 1. The question for everyone, they're all going to answer the same question. The question is, when you look at each of the presidents that came before you, what contribution to student life inspires you the most, and what does it inspire you to do? And first, we have Tina, then we have Lisa, and then we have Aiden. Where? That's number 2. You did your intros as number 1. Now you're at number 2. Okay. Start whenever you want.
All right, so quick show of hands to anyone who's attended a society event, any event. Great, so that's because your president has been dedicated to student engagement. Each president has left a mark on student life, but what inspires me the most was Sheree's ability to make every student believe that what they had to say mattered, especially society reps. From being an exec in multiple societies, to buying patties at the Caribbean bake sale, to attending a Bangladeshi festival, or even just stopping by at the social site pop-up, I make sure to show up because it's important. Sheree was always present at society roundtables, listening to all the grievances expressed, apologizing for any frustration, and immediately taking action. By doing so, she greatly improved student life because societies went on to create events that connected students, that made a first-year student feel welcome, or that made it a little easier to blow off some steam after a tough midterm. This contribution stands out to me because it directly impacted students' well-being and sense of belonging. And that's exactly what I want to do for students, show them that they belong. It inspires me to build on that legacy by continuing to show up when it matters most, expanding student support networks, ensuring that every student, regardless of background, feels heard, supported, and empowered to succeed. Thank you.
Hello, it's Lisa with a Z again. For me, it's Osama. He revamped the fifth floor, and I don't know about you guys, but I spend a good amount of time on the fifth floor, even though the TV never works, and the projector also never works. But regardless, I think his like the fifth floor and like revamping it was like such a big success, and like things I want to do are big and broad, and a lot of people tell me they're unrealistic, but like if you have seen one of my posters, they have the bat signal on it, signal on it, and it's there for a reason. I keep talking about Batman because, like, it's a lifestyle, and so there are big things that I want to do. And like Osama also revamped the Gorse Brook, and I think he inaugurated it, and it's just like as the SMUSA president, I don't want to do small things. I don't just want to talk about events. I want to do things that actually matter, from employment to housing. I want to be like that stubborn leader that when you come in through my door, you don't go back with a, oh, I'll get back to you. No, you're not going to get any like ChatGPT's email from me. You're not going to get like responses that tell you that I didn't read the email. When you come in through my office, you whatever idea you have, no matter how big it is, it's going to matter, and I'm going to listen. And even if people tell you that like, oh, this is too big and like our university can't do this, I will be that one person who will like be so stubborn. Like genuinely, I'm a South Asian woman. Okay, I was like, thank you for everyone who's South Asian. If you don't know, we are very stubborn. Okay, like my mom, I've argued with what I believe in, and I will be that leader for you. Like no matter what it is, if it is right, I will be there. And like the world could tell you no, and I will stand behind you and be like, okay, I'm Batman, so I'm gonna save whatever you have, and I'm gonna stand behind you, basically. Thank you.
Everyone. I'll be taking 2 minutes for this question. So looking back at both Sheree and Simba's presidential terms, they were both very impactful towards both student life as well as myself. For Ray's term, I was very impressed by her commitment to student engagement and transparency within SMUSA. Her efforts include the monthly reports on the SMUSA website and the hosting of roundtable discussions for the societies. Sorry. Hosted roundtable discussions with the various society executives, fostering an environment of openness and accountability. Seeing Sheree's leadership in action inspired me to become more approachable and confident in my own voice, encouraging me to express my thoughts without any concern or restriction. For Simba's term, I know it's still ongoing, and I'm sure there's a lot more to come throughout this year, but I admire his ability to bring real world issues to life, not like light, and to engage students in matters that extend beyond campus. For example, his involvement in the HRM municipal elections and his leadership in the hashtag Get Out the Vote. With Students Nova Scotia demonstrated that students have real power to shape our society. Simba has motivated me to take a more active role in both my community and broader societal issues, whether through advocacy, cultural engagement, or standing up for what is right. Both Sheree and Simba have paved the way for positive change, and they continue to inspire me to build upon their enhancing transparency, engagement, and student empowerment within SMUSA. Their leadership has shown me that with dedication and a clear vision, we can create a more inclusive, impactful, and student-driven community.
Okay, so we go to question two, and the order for question two is Aiden, Tina, Lisa. And the question is, how do you plan to encourage participation in SMUSA that accurately and proportionally represents the student body at SMU in such areas as on-off campus, graduate and undergraduate students, local and international students, male and female, able and differently abled, Indigenous and non-Indigenous students? And again, first up is Aiden.
Hi again. I'll take 2 minutes again for this question. My plan to encourage broader student participation in SMUSA that accurately represents the diverse student body would first begin with gathering data on what events students are actually interested in attending. We can do this through sending out surveys to the students, offering multiple options, as well as open-ended responses to capture unique answers and interests. Once we have this data, we can use it to determine which events would be the most effective and efficient and engaging. Collaborating with diverse student-led societies will definitely be a key move in ensuring events are tailored to different demographics, fostering inclusivity and representation. To ensure fair representation across all demographics, across all groups, including on and off campus students, graduate and undergraduate students, local and international students, individuals of all genders and abilities, and BIPOC students, we must take a targeted approach. This includes working closely with student-led groups, cultural organizations, and accessibility advocates to make sure our events and programs reflect the full student body. We can also use our pack leaders and street team members to connect directly with students and encourage them to get involved. By listening to students, working with groups, and making sure participation is easy for everyone, we can create a SMUSA that truly represents all students at SMU. Once the events are concluded, we can then offer a survey for the attendees to fill out in order to see where we can improve from and what we fell short so we can improve at the next coming events.
Go for it.
So SMUSA should reflect every student, not just a small engaged portion of the population. One thing I love about being a peer success coach is the amount of people that I get to meet on a daily basis and how I meet them from all walks of life. I've had the privilege of talking to students who somehow balance 5 courses, 5 clubs, and have a part-time job, where there are students who are just trying to figure out what building they're in. Well, my plan ensures that every group sees themselves represented, heard, and engaged in student leadership and events. And I plan to do this in 3 ways: targeted outreach, bringing SMUSA to students, and accessible engagement. In terms of targeted outreach and representation, I plan on establishing student advisory councils for underrepresented groups to bring their voices directly to the decision-making table. I also plan on working with campus cultural, accessibility, domestic, and international students group to co-create initiatives that directly serve their communities, because nobody understands students' needs better than students themselves. Many students don't engage simply because they don't know how or they don't see the relevance. I want to meet students where they are, inside residence halls, the library, in academic buildings, and online, to get their input and show them how SMUSA serves them. In my campaign, I even took the initiative to create handouts to explain exactly what SMUSA does, because who wants to get involved when you don't even know what your student body does? When it comes to accessibility and inclusive engagement, removing barriers to participation for students with disabilities to ensuring events, meetings, and leadership roles are truly accessible in formats, location, and communication is what SMUSA really needs. I'll be sure to create more hybrid events that accommodate students who can't physically attend. Whether you're a student who's at a networking panel to meet a specific person, or you're just there for the pizza, I mean, hey, I'm not judging, I respect the hustle. It's all about making SMUSA a space where all students feel like it belongs to them. Thank you.
Hello, me again. So when I went to fill out my nomination forms with 150 signatures, first of all, that was a lot. Half of the people, I can confidently say that 70% of the people that I talked to just gave me their signs because they liked me and I like gapped to them. But when I was like, oh, do you know what SMUSA is? Don't know. Do you know who Simba is? That actually got a few answers, but just because people know him. Do you know what SMUSA is, what Simba does? No. Do you know who the VP Academics is? No. So they are paying because in everyone's tuition fee, there's a specific money allotted for SMUSA. You're paying, but you don't know where it's going. And one of the things that a lot of people in their campaigns are talking about is the yearbook. So these people that are signing my nomination sheet, they're paying $8 for this yearbook that doesn't exist. So you're paying for things that you don't know what, like where that money goes. So like you can't go to events if you don't know they're happening. And that starts with SMUSA. Half of these people don't know. Can I get a show of hands of like the varsity athletes? Are there any other than Topez? There are the one, okay, and okay, DeAndre. That's two. That's two. Three, okay, Simba. But you know why there's like two or three? Because they don't know. And I talked to these athletes. They didn't know anyone. They didn't even know Simba, by the way, which is shocking because everyone knows Simba. And so the thing that I want to do is I want to do a table by Tim's every month where I will be there with my VPs. One, we will educate you on what SMUSA is, where your money goes. And two, you can come to us with your concerns. You can hold us accountable. You can be like, Lisa, you suck at your job. Or Lisa, you're doing great. Or Lisa, I want you to advocate for this. Because if you don't know who I am and what I do and like where my salary comes from, you can't talk to me and know what to do, right? So once you see me, you can bring your events to me. And like, I know we love the bingo, but like, how much bingo are we going to play? So a few events that I've thought about that like appeal to me once I've talked to students are cultural weeks. So I know that like Residence does cultural weeks, but I've never seen SMUSA throw like an Afro week or like a Bollywood week. We don't see any of those. I also want to start hosting an annual masquerade ball, like kind of make it a tradition. Maybe that's just me, but and then I also want to do a table where you guys come in and bring your ideas, because enough with the bingo. And for mature students, again, they don't come to any of these events, only throughout like Residence, because I was here, I live in Residence, so throughout the holidays I would see them and they would come in with their kids during Christmas. And so they would be like, all these events don't align with our schedule, and because we aren't like making events for them, we're just making events for very specific people. They don't come to these events, nor are they for them. So I want to cater events that are for specific groups, and also just general events like a masquerade ball anyone can show up to, and also cultural weeks, Afro weeks. That doesn't mean like only the Africans can come. Everyone can come because it's again a cultural like appreciation night. And so yeah, that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Okay, so for the next set, it is Aiden, then Tina, then Lisa. And the question is, what is the one accomplishment or quality that you hope defines your legacy at the end of your term?
So I'll take 2 minutes for this question.
Okay.
At the end of my term, one accomplishment and quality that I would want to define my legacy would be my influence on other students. Inspiring them to grow into better leaders, better students, and better individuals as a whole. Just as I have been motivated by those who came before me, I want to leave behind a legacy that encourages others to step forward, to make a difference, and push meaningful change. While there are many initiatives that I would love to accomplish, 2 key areas that I am very passionate about are enhancing the BIPOC student resources and advocating for a more equitable academic environment. It is crucial to address the lack of accessible resources and ensure that professors and faculty foster an inclusive and supportive atmosphere for all students, regardless of their background. Other accomplishments that I would like to be recognized for is strengthening student societies by ensuring that they receive the proper funding, regular check-ins, and direct supports from the executive team, specifically the VP of Societies. I also plan to expand volunteering opportunities both within SMU and SMUSA, as well as in the broader community. At its core, my goal is to create a supportive environment of experiences. By building on this foundation, I hope to inspire future leaders to take student life and advocacy to even greater heights, ensuring that each new generation leaves an even stronger impact than the last.
I want my legacy to be that students felt heard and that real change happened because of it. Too often, students' concerns get lost in bureaucracy, and many feel like their voices don't matter. My goal is to change that culture, to prove that when students speak, SMUSA listens. My results are data driven, so I took the initiative of researching 40 university student bodies across Canada, and I found some interesting results. Most university students associations struggle with the same issue: students feeling unheard and disconnected from decision making. They promise advocacy, but too often change moves at the speed of Wi-Fi connection when you're trying to submit an assignment that's due in 5 minutes. I don't want students to feel like they're just sending their concerns into the void. I want better for students. I want them to see real results. That means advocating for real improvements, whether it's better academic support, financial transparency, or stronger student-led initiatives that make a difference in daily campus life. It means not just nodding along in meetings, but actually pushing for change. So students can say, this year, my experience got better because SMUSA fought for me. During my presidency, every student will know that their voice isn't just welcome, it's what drives SMUSA forward. At the end of my term, I want to be remembered for action, for making sure students didn't just feel like part of SMUSA, but that SMUSA felt like it was truly theirs. That's the impact that I want to leave.
Oh, hang on 1 second. No one's in trouble yet. You're all well within your time. So hang on, Lisa. So you've used 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay.
So, one of the things that I want to accomplish is in general be an accessible leader. So right now, even though I do a lot of things, you can still find me in the hallways. There was this one time when I was passing by Ethan, who by the way is running for board of directors. Good luck. And he turned to his friend and he said, bro, she's everywhere. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I want to be everywhere because when I'm everywhere, I walk in these hallways and people tell me their issues. And I want to be the president who you can find in the hallways and then you can tell me your issues and I actually act upon them. Because if I'm stuck in my office doing a 9 to 5, I'm not going to serve you. I'm going to serve the job. And I want to serve the people, not the job. But specifically for my campaign, there are few things that I'm very passionate about that I talk about in my campaign. So for harassment and sexual violence, I want to partner up with REES, which stands for Respect, Educate, Empower Survivors. So it's an online platform where the platform will connect you to the administration and you can lodge an anonymous complaint. You can, if 2 or 3 people complain, they will tell you when that person is near you. Now, how great is that? If there was someone I like who harassed me, I wouldn't want to walk into them in the hallway, would I? And so this platform offers so much more, but again, I have limited time. I also want to address the housing thing. And I know people in the audience will end up asking this question, but I want to, so Dow does this thing where they partner up with what's called places for students, and they will specifically have housing on a cheaper price from the market, and then the students can go and look at this website and find housing. And again, I also want to implement programs where we offer you housing, not offer you, but we show you housing that is affordable and you don't just fall for a scam. And then the third thing I want to do is I want to establish an app where serve forms, meeting minutes, everything that is SMUSA related is in one app. Because I've been on the SMUSA website, it's a hassle. Like the meeting minutes are updated and I want everything to be on there. And as a society president, I know the serve forms can be hectic. And so I want to put it all into this one app. And what more does this app offer, you might ask? You will get to text your VPs. It'll be like Teams where you send, let's say, Francesca a text and then she gets back to you. Because emails are a hassle, although I love emails, it's too much time. And so we will just get back to you really quickly because it's like a Teams thing. And just because I want to throw it out there, this is an uncomfortable topic, but I named it washroom accessibility just because it sounds nicer. But I want to install one bidet on campus, guys. It's a problem for the Muslim students who want to pray on Friday. And not just that, like South Asian students, Arab students, we can't do one bidet. And I'm sorry if I made that uncomfortable. But again, overall in general, like aside from these things that I want to achieve, just from that, like as a person, I want to be the leader that you find in the hallways. Like that's not going to change. I live on campus. You see me everywhere, and you shall see me everywhere, even if I become president and even if I don't, because that's just who I am. I'll be there for you regardless. Thank you.
That was, you went almost 4 minutes, so you're getting, well, you went 3 minutes, so. A minute and a half, minute and 40 seconds. But that's okay, you've only got one, huh? Yeah, there's only one question left, and no one else is even close. So the last question is, what would you do if you saw a personality conflict bubbling up on your team? And the order is Lisa, Tina, Aiden.
Just Tash me outside. How about that? No, that's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke, everyone. No. Sorry, regroup. I think it's just there are like values that my parents have integrated in me where I can tell the difference between right and wrong first and foremost. And two, this job isn't about being selfish. Just because let's say I want to install a bidet and like 90% of the students are like, no, Lisa, we don't want a bidet. We don't do a bidet because again, this job isn't about me, it's about you all in this room and on campus. And if I disagree, it's just you regroup and you just don't be selfish. I'm a society president, I'm a chair, we face conflicts all the time. It's just how you approach, you talk to these people, you're nice, you put aside like your personality, like you don't make it about you. And at the end of the day, like I faced criticism before, and like as a president, there's a difference between like just criticizing someone and then like constructive criticism. So if I approach, let's say, the board with something, right, and they don't agree, it's like you bring something and then you let the other people chime in. So I would just listen to other people, I would regroup, and I wouldn't be selfish with my decision. And yeah, I think it's just like being able to differentiate between like just criticism and like constructive criticism and listening to others. So listen, because I know I like to yap, but like I've developed an ability where I can listen to other people now. Thank you.
Oh, you've got more than that left, so go for it.
All right, so personality conflicts are natural in any leadership position. And as a student, I know firsthand because I've been in certain situations where there was a personality conflict. And how we handle them really determines the success and outcome of that personality conflict. So the first thing I would do is to address it early, directly, and privately. So I would pull the individuals involved aside and listen to their perspectives and find common ground before things escalate. Because finding that common ground is how we set the foundation and tone for how the problem is going to be solved. Secondly, I would refocus on our shared mission. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look around the room because everybody here is here because you care about your student life and student engagement. Personal differences can't take priority over the work we're here to do. So as president, I'd remind my team that we may not always agree, but we always need to respect each other and work together for the students that we're here for and for the students who elected us. The third thing I would do is use strengths, not differences, to our advantage. So conflicts often stem from different perspectives, and that diversity can make us stronger, actually, and not weaker. And instead of seeing disagreements as obstacles, I'd use them as opportunities to build better, more well-rounded decisions. A strong team isn't one that never disagrees. I don't think you can even have that. It's one that knows how to work through differences productively. And that's the team that I would lead. Thank you.
I don't think I even have to say what I need, so I'll start. If a personality conflict were to arise on my team, my first priority would be to address it early before it escalates and affects our team's dynamics. I believe that clear communication, active listening, and structured mediation are key to resolving conflicts in a fair and professional manner. I would begin by meeting with each team member individually in a neutral setting. This would allow them to express their concerns freely without any interruption and help me understand the root cause of the disagreement. During these discussions, I would remain impartial, listening actively, and clarify key points to ensure I fully grasp both perspectives. Once I've heard both stories, I would summarize what I've learned and verify with each individual that I've promptly and accurately conveyed their points. This ensures transparency and minimizes misunderstandings before continuing the settlement. Once that is done, I would then bring both individuals together for a guided conversation focused on finding common ground rather than finding blame. I would encourage them to express their concerns constructively and work together to develop a proper solution. My role would be to mediate the conversation, keep emotions in check, and ensure professionalism while helping them reach an agreement. In the case where they're unable to resolve the conflict, I would work with the remaining executive team to ensure a fair, unbiased resolution. Once a decision is made, I would set clear expectations moving forward. Additionally, I would follow up with both individuals to ensure the issue does not resurface. By handling conflicts proactively and professionally, I want to ensure the team morale remains strong, communication stays open, and that we maintain a respectful and productive working environment.
Okay. Oh, first of all, well done, all three of you. I wouldn't want to be you guys. You got some tough choices this year. Now we're at the point where who would like to ask questions from the audience? Yellow shirt, her first, then white shirt, and then Nidhi. Okay, so it's yellow, white jacket, Nidhi. Go ahead, yellow shirt.
Hi everyone. Ooh. Hi everyone. How you guys doing? Good job. I just had a question for Lisa, right? Lisa.
If you ask a question, all three will be given a chance to answer it.
Okay. Great. Even better. I know you mentioned in your speech that you want to create an app that does everything, like, has everything on it. Are you aware of the Bonks app right now? Okay. The Bonks app? Okay, you are? Is that the same thing for everybody on the panel there? Okay, so with that being said, would you still want to implement that app, seeing that it does do the same thing that you're looking to do? It was just passed by the SMUSA body and they're trying to implement it. So I think it would overlap there. And the next question is still for you, Lisa. You mentioned a housing fund. I feel like what you mentioned is similar to Dash. So is there anything different to what the Dash fund does that your fund would do? Yeah, those are my two questions.
Okay, in the future, it's one question per person. So when it gets to Mr. Beige Coat here, he gets one question. But I appreciate the questions. Go ahead. You're using the little sheet. So the current order is, Tina, Lisa, Aiden.
All right, so I'll start by answering the first question. Thank you so much for the question. And we are aware of Bounce, and Bounce is an app made primarily for student engagement, and that's how a lot of students connect and know who's going to an event, and that's where you can get tickets and things like that. So similar to Liza, actually, I did have aspirations as well to building a comprehensive app that has everything from event calendars, reminders, to simplified policies so that students stay involved. Now, my approach to the app itself is not necessarily the same as Bounce, because Bounce, I understand that it's primarily for student engagement in terms of events. So my app would be an all-inclusive app that includes not just events, but every other thing related to SMUSA. It would also include like a weekly or a bi-weekly newsletter and things like that, just to keep students informed and engaged. So yes, we do acknowledge that Bounce is an amazing app, because I went and did my research and see the impact that they're having on students and the other universities that are using it as well. So we will keep that app because it's a very innovative app, but we'll also have like a SMUSA app, an app, a digital hub where students can come together and look at different things and understand exactly how.
That's your
SMUSA
time.
works.
Okay, you guys get 1 minute for this question. So.
Hello. I'm honored that it was directed at me. I felt special for a second. But this is very different from Bounce because Bounce is more about like use RSVPing to events and to like promote events. Also, I'm not sure what the like intake is for. No, I don't know if intake is the right word. Like if people are actually interacting with Bounce, but it was one of the things I walked up to Simba and I said, this is great and I love it. But for this is more of like an organizational app. So for societies, it will serve as like a SERM form thing where like you can get updates on where your SERM form is and how much progress it has done. And then other things, because I know for most societies, it's like SERM form gets done, but there's like an alcohol space, there's transportation. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So with my app, it would be you see the progress and you don't just feel like left on red, like we will update it. And then another thing is, again, you get in touch with your VPs and it'll be more professional. Whereas I think on Bounce, you just get to send reactions. And then the second thing was the housing thing. What I'm suggesting is very different from Dash Fund. It has nothing to do with money. You just partner up and collaborate with places for students where they would just like show SMU students all the available
Your time
housing.
is up, so you're gonna have to just, do you want another 30 seconds and I'll give
Like
everybody,
15, so I can wrap up my sentence.
and then they'll each get 15 seconds as well. Okay?
There's no money involved. It's just like a place, like a listing where they'll just tell you all the places that are available and they're cheaper. There's no like, there's no money involved with that. It's just a collaboration / partnership.
Okay, so Tina, back to you for one, because you didn't get a chance to answer the second question. Just for her? So you don't want your 15 seconds? Okay, you can save it for another time. Go ahead, Aiden.
I'll also ignore the second question since it wasn't direct to me.
Okay.
Okay. I also did have some thoughts about making an app, not the same as, you know, what Bounce is or what Lisa or Tina has in mind. I was more so thinking of an app that would assist societies really promote their events. And I was thinking, you know, maybe, for example, the computing science students could help assist build the app, make it like a volunteer work or a paid work. But I don't really have much else to contribute to that question.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so next was beige shirt.
Hello, hello. First of all, big up to you guys for running. I'm very happy to see a set of young leaders. Very happy to see a set of young leaders standing, so that's very exciting. But this is a very important question. Currently, we have certain policies, SMUSA policies that are being violated by SMUSA executives. So this question is about that. What will you do to make sure that only full-time students are hired who can work their full term, not half, and that student concerns about this are not ignored? That's the question to all three of you. Thank you.
So the order of the questions about what you would do to uphold all SMUSA policies is Aiden, then Tina, then Lisa.
1 minute, correct?
1 minute.
Ready?
Yep.
So to answer your question, well, one, I think that the hiring process should definitely not like, overlook that because there's 3 separate entities directing the hiring process. I'm sure we can implement a policy to really enforce that, to ensure that, you know, no half or part-time students are applying, well, not applying, but being hired, and to ensure that, you know, they're properly qualified full-time students for 1 more year or more.
Thank you.
So I'd first like to say that I want to acknowledge the concerns of students and recognize that accountability, leadership, and integrity must be strengthened. So if I'm elected, my priority would be to restore that trust, improve responsiveness, and ensure every student and society leader feels supported. Now, back to your question, how exactly do we make sure that these policies aren't infringed? So the first thing and most important thing is accountability. So I will introduce a student concern tracking system to enforce response deadlines and hold monthly town halls. And for sure, we're going to make sure that all the candidates that are outlined, they meet the expected requirements. and leadership conduct. So every SMUSA exec will undergo professional conduct training, and we will establish an independent review committee for all of these complaints. And as well, we're going to go through a hiring and exec qualifications. So we're going to implement transparent hiring practices, ensure only current students hold leadership roles, and require prior leadership experience for executives. And then going back to my first point is rebuilding trust. So I will hold regular student forums, conduct performance reviews for execs, and ensure that all feedback is addressed transparently. Thank you.
Okay, so you used up your, that got you to use up your extra 15 seconds.
That was a
Okay.
great response, Tina, on how to outdo that. But one, I just want to respond to your first part of the question. I just want to say that there are policies in place. There's a constitution that's on SMUSA's website. I think it recently just got uploaded. I'm not sure, but there is a constitution, and the rules aren't being followed. They are in place. And when this is about integrity. Like, this is also on you guys. When you elect the president and the board of directors, these are two people that play integral part in who is being hired. Okay, they have a really big say. So when you elect, don't elect based off of good vibes. Don't elect because you like my poster. Don't elect because you like Aiden's suit. Elect because you believe in these people. Okay. Someone did say that to me. Someone said, I will vote because Aiden has Caribbean and the suit. And I was like, I would too. And also, but back at it again, this is about my legacy. And even with my society, I took it very seriously, because at the end of the day, this is about my legacy. And do I want to leave behind a SMUSA that people hated? Not really. So, and also with my monthly table, you can just come to my face and be like, Lisa, you suck. What are you
That's your
doing?
time.
So-
Okay. Okay, so now we have Nidhi's question. And the order for this is Lisa, Aiden, Tina. It's
Should I
question
ask?
8.
Okay, commendable responses, first of all. They're super inspiring. I just had a quick question. You present a proposal to the board, but it gets rejected. How do you respond, and when do you bring it up for discussion again? Thank you.
Okay, so for this question, I just have like a few things to say. During the summer, actually, I was doing a lot of advocating, and I brought up things with SMUSA that were then brought to the board. Whether approved or whether rejected, that's beyond the point. But thing is, I'm not afraid to stand up for what the students believe in. If you tell me to like advocate for something that you believe in, and I know that the board will reject, I will still present it. But at the end of the day, again, the board is are people who you appoint. And I'm gonna say this again, be very, very, very careful with who you elect. Do not go based off of just like their posters and whatever. Know who you're electing. But again, if they reject, I will work on it again, and I will reshape it. I will see what the issues are, what their constructive criticism is. If it's something that's just point blank, like it's bad, we trash it. But in the end, I want to work on it. Like, if there's a proposal that's being rejected, there's usually loopholes. Again, I would work on it and I would represent it, because again, I want to stand for you guys. And like, if you want me to advocate for something, I'm not going to back down because the board says no. I'm going to stand for you. But at the end of the day, the board does get the
Time.
final say.
Okay.
Could you just repeat the question one more time for me?
I'll repeat the question. So the question is, if you advocated for something and presented to the board and you got turned down, what would you do?
So obviously I won't take that to heart. What I would do is probably just ask how we can improve on what your issue was with it, first of all, and then I can go back and make the changes necessary in order to, make it more feasible for the board to really accept that proposal. If it's for the students that, suggested it, I'll go back to the student and ask, this is what can't happen and can. What do you think of this? And, really try and, I will push for it as long as we can make the necessary adjustments for it.
So I'd first start by answering that question to just make it clear that the board is not my enemy. They're also serving students just as much as I am serving students, and they are also acting in the best interest of the student population. So I will try to be as objective as possible, again, not tying into any emotional background. And I'll try to figure out the reason behind why the board rejected the plan or the idea, because it starts by understanding why exactly that plan was rejected. If we go back, I mentioned that the board is not my enemy and they're still here to serve students. So I would try to understand their perspective, see where they're coming from, and just go back to the drawing board and try to create alternatives.
Okay, thank you. Before we get going back to the room, and in the room, we will have pink and then black and then striped next. But first, I have an online question and I'm going to ask that one. Is that okay? So the online question is, my question is the same as the one I asked our candidates last year. We put a lot of trust into our student leaders, specifically our presidents. How would you deal with maintaining trust with students and handling situations where your personal integrity may be questioned or may be questioned in the future? And the order for this question is question 9 is Lisa, Aiden, Augustina. I will read it again. Okay. We put a lot of trust in our student leaders, specifically our presidents. How would you deal with maintaining trust with students and handling situations where your personal integrity may be questioned or may be questioned in the future?
Okay. So for the maintaining trust, I would just say, again, the people need to know what you're doing. And for part of my campaign is sending monthly. I know Tina already mentioned it. I swear I didn't like copy it off of her. It's on my Instagram, but I want to do a monthly newsletter where I update everything that we're doing, and every meeting minutes will be uploaded, guys. It's a really important. I go through them and I want to make them as detailed as possible so you guys know what I'm doing. You pay for my salary, or like whoever gets elected, so you should know where your money is going and you're getting your money's worth. And so with the newsletter, I also want to do the tables where, again, you see me, you come to me, you will build that trust with me face to face. It's not going to be in my office. It'll be when you see me, and you'll see me doing the work, and I've shown you that I'm going to prove to you what I'm doing. And for the integrity, again, part of my campaign is any of the complaints, as Abdul mentioned, that come into the office, they're going to be investigated. They're not just going to be pushed underneath the rug. We're going to look into them, and it's going to be a third non-biased party. We're going to make sure that whatever your concerns are, they're actually looked into. And I think with that,
That's your time. Okay.
Just repeat the question one more time, please.
The question, one more time. We put a lot of trust into our student leaders, specifically our presidents. How would you deal with maintaining trust with students and handling situations where your personal integrity may be questioned or may be questioned in the future?
So I do want to be completely transparent with what I do. I know that it's going to be very difficult due to, all the legal issues and of the non-disclosures, but I'll try my best in order to truly achieve that. In the case where my integrity will be questioned or will be questioned in the future, I'll take full accountability for that. I'm not just going to hide and ignore all the complaints that students have. I really want to, push the fact that I am hearing you, and I'll do my best to, just to change things,
Thank you.
So similar to what Liza and Aiden have said, one of the main things that I plan to focus on is accountability. So that's a big part of my platform, both accountability and transparency. Now, I'll be honest, there have been a few times where I may not have done a role to the best of my abilities, but I'm well aware enough to go back to the drawing board and try to be better. And I think that's one of the key aspects of what it truly means to be a leader, to hold yourself accountable and to be transparent to the people that you're serving. So there are different mechanisms in place that I plan to put for in terms of when my integrity may have been questioned. That includes regular student feedback. We'll be having like monthly Q&A sessions, just having those constant feedback mechanisms in place. We'll also have office hours and town halls where students actively express their content or discontent for any activity that I may be pursuing. So just to sum it up, it's both transparency and accountability, as those are big
That's
parts
also
of
your
my
time.
platform.
Okay, you're over. Okay, so it was a light purple shirt. You were first. It went purple, red, striped, right? We'll get to everybody. Just give it a minute.
So first of all, congratulations. It takes courage to stand up for these roles. Let's say you're elected for the role of president. After that, there's not much say for the students, even though it's say, like Smew says, by the students, for the students, there's not much say in who gets to be the VP. And VP also plays a very integral role in like taking and leading the team. How will you make sure that you're hiring people and you're taking people based on their skill and not because they're your friends?
Okay, so we have 1 minute for this one as well. First goes Aiden, then Lisa, and then Tina.
So you're completely valid for that. There is a chance that it could be, an actual election, but I think hiring, like having the board involved properly and having, actual third-party representatives, including the president, would genuinely assist, help in the hiring process. We need to do background checks to ensure that, you're not just doing it for the friends or, acquaintances. You're doing it for their actual skills and that they're properly qualified, regardless of not regardless, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
There's something happening in the room and I don't know what's happening. But I think these are very valid questions. These are not just your concerns. I just want to say, one of the reasons that I'm standing up is because I know things like this happen, things like this may happen. And if I'm someone who sees this and thinks this is an issue, then I can assure you I'm going to do something about it. Again, I think part of your question was if there isn't a big pool to hire from. I think all that we need to make it less like a cool kids club, because I remember looking at the VP advertising and asking people do you think I can apply for this? Do you think I have enough experience? I think we need to relax that. We need to calm it down. You get into the role and you learn. You don't just come God sent as VP academics, let's say. By the way, shout out Francesca, you're great. But you get into this role and you learn. So I want to include people who don't necessarily think they have the right experience, but because you also learn from this role. Again, I'm not for the hiring of friends and we'll keep it professional. And again, I just want to highlight every question that you guys are bringing up. These are things I've
That's
sat
your
in my
time.
lounge about.
Okay.
So I'd like to answer this question by reiterating a previous point that I had. So in terms of hiring execs, I'm going to implement transparent hiring practices and require prior leadership experience for these execs. But what does a transparent hiring process even really mean? So that means fully letting students know all the requirements, be as objective as possible, and try to speak up if I flag any candidate that's doing it besides them being fully qualified to do so. Now, I know that the president plays a major role in hiring these execs, but keep in mind that there are other stakeholders as well that determine whether these execs will be hired. So as president, if I flag that a current candidate may not be the best for that role, I will speak up. I won't just sit down and be like, okay, they know they have connections or they know people, they're popular around campus, so I'd hire them. No, I also agree when Lisa mentioned that it shouldn't really be a cool kids club, because I also had that sentiment as well.
There's your time.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, so next was, no, I told you already who was next. It's this guy here behind the guy in the red and then the girl in the striped shirt. And then we'll do the next part.
Thank you for giving me the floor. As we can see around the room, there's a lot of people from a lot of diversity. And as you can talk about international tuition going up 5% or so every year. And with bursaries or scholarships being capped to 12%, $12,000 at SMU, I just want to understand when there's tuition going up with such increase rapidly, what would you, if given your position as president, do for the students, make tuition affordable and make education affordable? Because a lot of students, they're working part-time, full-time just to pay tuition, and they don't even attend class. And this is not the purpose of education. I want to study so that I have affordable education. And SMU has, you know what the economic situation is at SMU, and tuition is just going up and up. What would you do if you were elected in your position to make tuition affordable for everyone?
Okay, if you want, I can increase this one to be 1.5 minutes per person. Okay, and the order will be Tina, Lisa, Aiden.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And I definitely resonate with your concerns. As an international student myself, it costs a pretty penny to pay for tuition. And I work multiple jobs, as mentioned, being an RA, peer success coach, and other jobs as well. So it is definitely difficult in terms of affording tuition. Now, I want to start by being as transparent as possible that there is, although like the president can do a lot, there are certain things that I cannot promise students, that I will not sit here and make false promises and be like, oh, I'm going to lower tuition by 10% and just make those false promises. But what I will do is advocate for you guys. What I will do is make sure that these concerns are being brought to the right stakeholders. These concerns are being brought to people who can actually make a change, who can affect how you are able to afford tuition, who can make a change in how you're able to pay for these things. Because that's what I'm here for, to advocate and to be your voice and to make sure that you're being heard and that you're being represented in all of these different tables. Because I get it. As an international student, it is really difficult, but I would try my best to make sure that these concerns don't go unheard and that you're represented, and that as much as possible that the tuition will be capped.
I work 4 jobs and I know how horrible it is. Like when you call up your dad and you're like, hi, dad, have I told you how much I love you? Also, can you send me 15K really quickly? But like homie pulls through all the time. I don't know how I would not. I would be like, bye bye, you're 18. I don't do this. But again, like Tina said, I'm not going to make false promises, but there are things that I've thought about. And like, these are things that other universities implement. Everything that I'm promising you, I've looked at, and like other universities are implementing it, and it's possible. So for tuition, the president can at most advocate with the VP of advocacy. And it's just like a strong push federally for like tuition caps, like further tuition caps, because I think a 2% one already exists. And then also there's a thing that exists. It's like a long-term plan for tuition predictability. So when you get into SMU, they'll tell you that over the course of your degree, how much is going to cost. Because I came in thinking it's 24K, but then I look at my self-service banner and then it says more. And then I call up my dad and I'm like, can I have 15K? And he sends it. But it's like at the beginning of your degree, you should know how much it's going to cost. And then further, like the yearbook cost, it's like there are unnecessary things that you are paying for. And then as president, I can promise you that I'll look through it. I'll look where I can find where you can save money. Because I'm brown, I like to save money. So I can promise you I'll see what I can do. And with the advocacy, I'm stubborn as hell. I will make sure I go into these meetings and I'm like cap. So that's all I have to offer for you.
I don't know. I can beat that. I cannot make those promises. I was definitely thinking of, trying to increase the amount of scholarships we do have. I think that would help a lot. But I don't really have anything else to say further than that.
Okay, no, now it's time for the girl in the striped shirt. She's right here.
I would start with congratulating the candidates for reaching so far. And my question is about the housing website that was mentioned. Who is going to take the credibility if there's some fraud that happened? Because listing the students about the housing problems is a huge thing here, and that's exactly what Marketplace does, Kijiji does. What difference are you going to bring? Who's going to take the credibility of any fraud that could happen to a student?
Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase because I had trouble hearing you. She wants to know what you're going to do about housing and making sure that housing is accessible, something other than Kijiji. You really, it was impossible to hear you unless one of you guys heard the question. Did you? No. The mic is live. Just hold it here.
Yeah, my question was, who's going to take the credibility if there's any fraud that happens with any student who gets housed through the listing website? That's
Okay, so who is going to help deal with any student fraud or fraud that's committed against students through the housing website that you mentioned?
because the listing is already done through Marketplace and Kijiji and stuff. So what's the difference?
She wants to know what you're going to do to protect students from fraudulent housing listings. Okay, so that should just be 1 minute, and the order will be Augustina, Aiden, Lisa.
Okay, thank you for the question. So in terms of preventing fraudulent housing listings, I plan on making sure that all the listings that are going to happen go through a rigorous screening process. So that way we actually make sure that these are legit and that they're not scams before they even go live on the website. Now, it is possible to still have some of those, and I will make sure to the best of my abilities that there aren't. But if it does happen, we will take full accountability and responsibility for that and try to make sure that we meet the students where they are and try to make sure that we accommodate all of their needs. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I think we should definitely do like background checks, like credible background checks on them before it's posted. I personally don't think I can promise how we can back you up if you are, suffering from fraud. But we can do our best to truly like ensure that they are credible. They, have experience, for example, renting out to other tenants before, and getting actual background checks of the property and the person before it's even up. Thank you.
So you said like listings already exist. What's the difference? So the difference is, one, these are credible listings. So we've gone through them, we've screened them, we've tested them. I don't want to repeat what both of them have said, but I agree with Aiden where we can't take accountability for scams that you fall for. Will we check thoroughly? 100%. But at the end of the day, before you sign a contract, it is your responsibility to read through it. We can just assure you that like someone won't run away with your money. And like if you're coming from, let's say Dubai, when you come here, there's actually an apartment. If there's mice in it and you didn't do you get what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, when you're signing the contract, you have to look through it. We will just make sure that no one's running away with your money and that like the apartment exists, because international students coming from abroad obviously won't know what's here. So we will just list it in one place. And also you mentioned Kijiji, Facebook, whatever, it's scattered and it's like everything is everywhere. We'll just put it in one place. So all the credible listings that are available all in one place that have been screened and that have been checked
It's
through.
your time. Okay. All right, so you've already, I'm gonna go over here with the gray sweatshirt, then Simba, then the girl with the glasses, okay? So,
Thank you to all of you guys. I understand that SMUSA is a corporation, or like it's like that's kind of the structure. I think we're in a place that's really glaring right now in the city where the other student unions in the city are very vocal about the global issues that are, that are impacting students, impacting our families, impacting the world. And my heart's literally beating as I say this because it means so much to me, but like, when it comes to issues like the crisis in Bangladesh over the summer, or Palestine and the genocide that's over a year ongoing, when it comes to issues like this, based on, I know it's a corporation. I know
no,
there are things. We
I'm going
avoid
to actually
political.
interrupt you. We can't have those questions and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Okay? SMUSA has to represent all students.
Mhm.
And if they choose sides in any of those issues, there are often students on both sides. This is something that decision was made as part of the structuring of SMUSA, that they would not do this. And it will not be the choice of the presidents to do that.
Okay. Well,
So-
then that was my question. So I appreciate you
that's
answering
why
that.
I'm answering it for you.
Mhm.
They won't have, that's like saying they could control tuition, they can't. They can advocate for it, but those are part of the fabric of SMUSA. And for what it's worth, I think it's one of the best fabrics for that reason, because you don't end up with students on different sides of the same issue. You represent everybody equally.
Okay, well, I
understand.
disagree, because you said your opinion on whether that's a good structure or not. I disagree that that's a bad structure. Is that something that the board can change?
I think you're free to change, it would take some work, but it's possible, but that's
Okay.
the board, it's certainly not the president.
It's certainly not the president. Well, thank you for answering.
And I would say I did tell you who the next three were. It was then Simba, yeah. Yes, same order that we just gave. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, folks. I think this has been an amazing debate. Of course, I was in the hot seat last year, so it's great to see you folks there as well. So I did tell you folks to do your research during our info session and make sure you know all the nitty-gritties about what you do as president, as well as the other information that does come. So understanding that there's a new provost FIPAR, so that's the vice president of academic and research, and there's a new SMU president coming into the institution, and that's very exciting for St. Mary's University. I just want to see what your plans are in forming that connection. At the same time, what ways could you influence them as well? Thank you.
Okay, and the order for this is Aiden, Tina, Lisa.
Just to confirm, the question is, how are we going to?
What are you going to do to welcome the new provost and the new president and make them feel part and connected to the student union?
Well, first, I think we should definitely, sit down, like as groups, as SMUSA and SMU, have a chat about what we're looking for the academic year, and all the previous history that we've done. And I would like for them to share their experiences on what they think of our plan, our annual plan coming forward, and what SMU's plan is coming forward, and how we can really collaborate as to how we can work together to ensure that it's a safe environment for all the students we have. That's my answer. Thank you.
So in terms of forming that connection with students in the transition process, I would like to get as much feedback from students as possible. What would they want that connection to look like? What do they want to see in the new presidency? What do they want to change from the old one? So that's how we form that connection and see what students really need. And we just cater to that exactly. So different avenues of feedback are going to be available so that we get a sense of what students actually need. And then we just cater to it.
I would just use my charm and my res, but that's just my opinion. But I actually I would like to think, I don't know how Dr. Robert feels about this, but I would like to think that I had a connection with him the second I got here, because I was yapping to him about Formula One, and his wife is actually into Formula One. So we talked about that. He told me about his tie. Again, I just used my res and it worked. But these are very experienced people. And if I'm the president, think about how much influence these people have. These are further bridges to the province, to the, so you need to have a really solid connection with these people, and you need to work with them, because at the end of the day, you're in Senate with them, you're in different committees with them. So you need to have that chemistry with them. And also, like most every time that I've met, they really appreciate someone who takes initiative. They appreciate student leaders. So as the president, I would just approach them and like talk to them and like get their advice and their wisdom, because most of them have been doing this for a really long time. And you've actually looked at their CVs, they're damn long, and it's a long read, but you look through it and you
Your
know that they have a
time.
lot of experience. So you use that.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have the girl right there in the glasses. You were next. Brown sweater. And the order for this is Lisa, Aiden, Augustine.
Hello, everyone. So first of all, best of luck to each and every one of you for running this election. May the best candidate win. So we are asked to raise our voice, but it is always filtered or not even heard. So how to plan on working on that? Because every time it is said that this time it will be fixed, we are gonna work on that, and a whole blame game goes on. And also, a lot of students have noticed that personal differences have crept into professional spaces within SMUSA this past year. This includes many instances I won't mention for the sake of being professional, but this definitely includes favoritism, biasness, and discrimination, whether it be job descriptions, volunteering positions, or even a society wanting to host one event. So what will you do to make sure that executives are professional and cordial to all students? Because at the end of the day, the SMUSA organization is run by us. We trust you guys with our votes. We give you votes because we believe you're going to advocate for us. So filtering our voices is something that has been faced this year a lot. So this is my question. Thank you.
Again, can we try to keep our questions to just questions and not really long speeches? That would be awesome. Okay, so you guys have a minute on this, and the order is Lisa, Aiden, Augustine. So I can summarize the question. The summarized question is, how are you going to ensure that your executive and SMUSA stay professional, don't filter the voices of students, and ensure that they don't allow personal biases to affect their work?
Okay.
And that's how the question should be asked next time. Okay, girl in the glasses? All right, go ahead.
I'll repeat once again. These are, again, issues I've had. This is why I'm running. As someone who has societies, one of the issues you mentioned, as someone who wants to run as VP, I know about all of these issues. And also, I'm like, I've gotten too much training on like bias. And also, these are things I personally, as a person, stand against. And if you know me personally, there are people who can attest to this. I've spoken up about this and I keep speaking up about it, sometimes too much, but I will be the voice. I'm not going to be filtering the voice. I am the voice. When it comes to accountability, half of what you're saying is basically accountability. And every year, everyone sits on this table and says few things about accountability, but they never tell you how they're going to be held accountable. I'm giving you the solutions. You're going to come to my table every month. You're going to hold me accountable by asking me how I'm doing. Am I like justifying my 30,000 salary, or like however much I get paid? Am I justifying? If not, you come to me and you speak to me about it. You can publicly shame me for all you want, because again, you basically pay me, so I work under you, so you should have that voice.
That's your time.
Just, can I get this summary one more time?
She would like to know what you're going to do to ensure that all the SMUSA executives remain professional, that you don't filter student voices, and that you don't have bias in your behaviors and execution of your job.
So I come from, many different training backgrounds, and I can assure you that all the VPs and executives in SMUSA will be properly, trained in how to be an unbiased individual. I think that your voices should not be censored, and to do that, I think you could even just, like, for example, I don't know if I can say this, but like make a post about it and just kind of bash us if you want, like let us know that we're actually like messing up and you're not being heard properly. Make it explode. Like, just make it known so everyone can hear it so that they can hold us accountable. I know for a fact that I would personally not like let it slide, but it's really all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I definitely agree that oftentimes most students' concerns get lost in bureaucracy and the fact that there's a lot of biases and favoritism. Um, that's why a lot of students may feel like their voices don't matter. But as I mentioned earlier, my goal is to change that culture. And I can definitely relate as a woman of color that I've had experiences as well with bias and favoritism and things like that. And for me, it's all about sticking to my values, sticking to how all of these different campus experiences has shaped me. And integrity is one of those main values because not only have I been in that position before, but I also know what it feels like to be on the other end. So I would definitely make sure that there's no filtering to make sure that everyone's voices are heard and to be as objective as possible because I'm bringing to you real solutions to real problems and just to let you know that you are being heard. Thank you.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to take 4 more questions. So be thoughtful. If you're sitting next to someone, I need 4 questions. And I want people who haven't answered questions before, asked questions before. Okay. So you with the blue and sweatshirt, you, and then in the back, we have a girl very, very back. You got a wristwatch on and the green sweatshirt. Those are the 4. Okay. In that order.
Hello. Oh, there you go. Congratulations to all 3 of you. I'm really glad you're here. It's very fun. I'm having so much fun over here. But I always like to say, obviously, we're hearing a lot of promises and, love all those promises. We want all of those. But at the same time, not everyone keeps those. We see that time and again. But if you were in Simba's position right now, what would you do differently and why?
Okay, so you have, for this question, the order is Augustina, Lisa, Aiden, and you can have 1.5 minutes for this question.
All right, thank you so much for that question. And I'd just like to start by answering the fact that I would like to acknowledge that Simba has done a lot and there are real changes that are being made. But if I was in Simba's position, one of the things that I would do differently was to continue student engagement after being elected. So I don't know if this is similar experiences to other people. Even though Simba is engaged with students, we see less of him more now that he's been elected as opposed to when he was a candidate. And if I become president, I would continue that student engagement. I would continue to show up at every society event. I would continue to go to the pop-ups and say hi to people in the hallway. Now, I'm not saying that Simba doesn't do that. I'm just saying that I would do more of that if I were to be president. And that's one of the main things that I want to reiterate to people, that regardless of the outcome of this situation, I will always show up because that's who I am and that's why I'm running. I want to be able to represent students. I want to be able to be there for students because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. So in a nutshell, if I were to do something different, it's going to be to increase student engagement and to actually listen and talk to the people who elected me to be in this position in the first place. Thank you.
Okay.
My answer is similar to Tina's. I think I saw Simba smile really cheekily when that question came up. Hello, Simba. I think I would rebuild the trust in SMUSA. I think this is like, I don't know. I think there's like conflicting opinions that I've never seen about SMUSA like before ever. And this is the first time I'm hearing it. Again, same with the energy in the room. But I think I would just listen to what the students are saying. The voices are really loud right now. And I trust SMUSA, I trust Simba to listen to them. And I want him to deliver on that. So if I was Simba, I would just do that. And the same thing as Tina just said, I know the 9 to 5 thing and it becomes a corporate job. It becomes a lot, but like, I want to see Simba in the hallways. I want to see him smile when I'm walking into the wonderful room. Like I think going back to your roots and like not forgetting who voted for you. Because I voted for Simba and I see less of him. And it's like if that would have I would have been like, I would rather see him in the hallways. So I can like speak to you and like bring you my issues. Because when I do bring my issues to Simba, he actually does something about it. But when I do like if I can't see him, I can't bring my issues. So again, I would do that in my campaign and my presidency so that when you see me in the hallways you can bring me your issues and I can actually be there for you so I don't forget who voted for me and like I don't forget my roots. But yeah, shout out to Simba. This is very stressful right now. I'm sweating.
Okay.
So going back to like my legacy, I want to be known to influence other students and to, you know, do what Simba hasn't. I would definitely want to be seen more. Like I used to play ping pong with you like last year. So I never see you at all anymore. I would much rather have a president that's constantly around and is constantly open to feedback than someone who I don't see as much. I know Simba is doing a lot and it hasn't been said publicly. I know there's a lot of confidentiality involved in what he's doing, but so to change that, I would also want to, you know, try and fight back for what, like if I can push more information out to the people. Like I would rather be able to truly speak on what we're doing than keeping it quiet for the entire, you know, first semester, part of second semester. I want to also like have a lot in our in our SMUSA executive reports. I feel like I don't see a lot of content in those recently, and I'd really want to push more information in that. Thank you.
One, two. Okay. Congratulations to you guys. I mean, it took a lot of confidence to sit up here today. I was nervous. I'm nervous for you guys. So my question is, well, based on the question Simba asked, we understand that it's important that there's good communication and a relationship between the execs and the administration. But how would you cultivate that relationship and transparency with your board and its chair, especially considering it's vital for the success of the association?
Okay, so the order for this is Augustina, Lisa, Aiden, and I'll give you a minute and a half.
So there are definitely different avenues to cultivate that relationship between the board and the chair, because I do understand the full extent to which the chair does impact the decisions made, even though that the board acts as one, but the chair does have autonomy and ends up making decisions. So the way that I would go about bridging that connection between the board and chair and making sure that there's that relationship is to have them understand. Sorry?
The
All right, sorry for that confusion.
It's okay, we'll let you start again.
Yes. So in terms of forming that relationship between the board itself and the execs, I will make sure to kind of be that bridge so that I can make sure that both organizations or both teams are on the same page, and to make sure that they understand the extent to which they're working for students. And there are different ways to do that, actually. Obviously, there can be retreats, there can be sessions, team building activities, and things like that. And I make sure that we all understand our responsibilities and duties, because by doing that, you ensure that there's no overstepping, there's no confusion, and it just promotes a healthier environment. And if there were to be a situation where there's that a little bit of hostility between the execs and the board, I would definitely go back to the drawing board and try to figure out viable solutions to those issues.
Thank you.
I know most of the candidates who are running and also are on the board, so we're already off to a great start. Hopefully they like me, Ethan. Yeah, okay, good. We got a thumbs up. But also one of the problems with the board of directors is like, technically they're only supposed to meet like 4 times throughout the year, which is insane to think about because they do so much. And like one of the problems is because they meet up so less, they can't really hold anyone accountable. Like they can't get together when you're trying to get meetings with the board of directors. It's really hard to pull them all together. And I think like that job needs to be more taken more seriously. Because when you try to get meetings with these board, it's like someone's off, we can't get them. And it's like, yes, but you're the board that everything comes down to. So they need to meet more one, and then we also need to keep them more engaged. And back to Aiden's point as well, the reports. Like when I read these reports, the board ones are actually quite helpful. Like I get substance out of it, but they're never uploaded. Like there's 3, I think, for 2024. So where are the rest of the reports? Why don't I see them? It's like you guys don't meet enough. There's no content. So for us, I want to make sure that the board holds me accountable and that I work with them and I publish everything and you see it. And so that you guys can hold the board accountable then and me. And just in general, I think the board like needs to take its job seriously. Yeah.
So for me, I think agreeing with their points, the board should meet more. I also think that, you know, for example, the president and the chair themselves should like both meet and like truly discuss what's going on, what their plan is for like the month or for the semester, but meet somewhat frequently. And I think that with those meetings, they're able to then convey everything to the rest of the team. President can convey everything to the vice presidents. Chair can direct everything to the board members. More communication is definitely key in this scenario, I think.
Okay, who's next? Is it the guy in the green shirt? Oh, yeah,
Hi.
there you are. Yep. go ahead.
So from being here, I've seen that all 3 of you have such big dreams and such big vision for SMUSA going forward. But if you cannot get all of that done in that 1 year that you're elected for, what is one big gap that you have seen in SMUSA over the years that you want to bridge this year?
Okay, so she's asking, what's the one thing you're gonna do this year and get bridged this year? Okay, and the order is Aiden, Lisa, Augustina.
Could you repeat one more time for me?
She wants to know, you all have big dreams. What's the one thing you would want to get done this year?
So there's multiple things I want to get done. I think my key point is to really, achieve equality in SMU. I've heard a lot of, issues that professors and faculty have with BIPOC students. And I really want to fight that, because coming from my background, I suffered some of the same thing. It's not nice to have that. So that's one thing I definitely want to, kind of end. I want to hold professors accountable. I want to, truly make SMUSA an equal place for everyone.
I'm also trying to take on a lot, like from bidets to like tuition. I've got it all, but like there's a reason why you see accountability and transparency in everyone's campaigns. They're there for a reason. It's because we haven't been able to achieve it yet. And that's why I'm giving you like very specific achievable things. A table monthly by Tim's where you either come scream at me or shower me with love. It's very possible. A newsletter monthly with updates is very possible. So I don't think transparency and accountability is like thing that like SMUSA has achieved. And even aside from that, I'm going to take my time to talk about the employment initiatives that I want to take. I want to partner up with businesses and just create like SMUSA quotas where they just hire from the SMU students pool, because I know we talk a lot about employment, but no one has like specifics. And then for food insecurity, I want to implement a grocery program. Again, these are things that other universities have accomplished, and so can we. Like again, back to Osama, like he had big dreams, he followed it through, and I'm telling you, these are things that can be followed through. And when I say accountability and transparency, it's not because ChatGPT gave me those words, it's because I mean them, and I tell you how and why I mean them in my campaign and throughout this debate as well.
Okay.
I feel like this may be oversaid and overused a little bit, but in terms of where I want to bridge SMUSA and what I'd like to do, um, we've all said that, but in terms of transparency as well. Um, so in terms of transparency, I want to increase that understanding and the fact that students get to know exactly what SMUSA is doing with considering even the confidentiality as well. So I'd like to produce reports, eliminate that integrity concerns, because we've all heard that today there are a couple integrity concerns. So we'd like to directly address that, and that includes like code and conduct reports and things like that. So as Lisa mentioned as well, these are really achievable and attainable goals. So with the Q&A sessions and the newsletters, as mentioned as well, these are things that aren't impossible. And I'm not trying to just repeat what Liza said, but these are the real issues that SMUSA is facing right now. And as president, those are the type of issues that I plan on addressing as well.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ashish. Really nice to see the three of you speaking up today. For those of you that don't know, I was the board chair the year prior. I asked this question, and sorry for a bit of a bummer question at the very end, but I'm genuinely curious because I've heard across the board, all candidates have spoken with the terminology and the phrasing, my legacy, repetitively. So I know it's a conscious choice to use these words. I'm asking from a genuine perspective because I'm leaving here as of right now with the image that presidents are looking for a self-serving intent here. How can you convince me as a SMU student that you are not here to preserve your image, your legacy, so to speak, but rather to serve the interests of the broader community? How can you sit right making a decision that maybe you didn't envision would be part of your legacy, but it is what students want to do?
Okay, so do you guys have the question? This is the last question, and the order is Lisa, Aiden, Augustina. And the last question, I'll rephrase it so that you get that second to think. You can have a minute and a half, and then at the end of that, you will all be given another minute and a half to leave the students with their final thought on you. Okay? That's how this will end. So the question is, what will you do that's not self-serving to leave a legacy that's not about you, but about the students for SMU? Okay. In order, Lisa, Aiden, Augustina.
I've volunteered in the food room. I started society when I came here, not for anything, just because I like Formula One. I became the chair of the Res Life Multicultural Committee because I had an RA named Callum, and I saw them putting up the posters, and I got like really into it. And I was like, wait, I want to do this. And I remember in February walking up to Khulud and Abdul being like, how do you start a society? None of that was self-serving. I don't get anything. I don't get paid to go to the food room. I volunteered for a year straight. I can't do that unfortunately right now because of like the 4 jobs. But everything that I do, none of it is self-serving. Yes, I get paid to do the Res Life job. Other than that, none of it is paid. And I wanna choose my words very carefully. But everything that some people have mentioned in this room, I've sat in my lounge and I've literally like my BP has gone up because I'm like, my SERM form, my this, I want to read the meeting minutes, they're not there. I want to see Simba in the hallway. Why can't I see Simba in the hallway? I want to bring my issue. I put in this complaint, it didn't go anywhere. If I'm someone who's raging in my lounge about these issues that directly relate to SMUSA, and like I've been doing things that don't like give me and no financial benefit whatsoever, and like it's a food room, what am I going to get out of it? I think that should tell you enough about my character. I don't want to self glaze, but it's just these are things that matter to me. If my BB is going up because like my society is like facing problems, that doesn't give me anything. It's just I genuinely care about these things. I genuinely care about the mice in residence. I don't know why I can't do anything about it, but they keep telling me you can't do anything.
That's your minute and a half.
So I'm a resident assistant, and I became that because I wanted to give students something that I didn't have properly. I really want students to, you know, enjoy their student life the best they can. And so like, For example, when I'm bringing in the more volunteering options, I want students to like really get involved so they can fully enjoy their experience, fully understand and grasp all like the skills and experiences they need to build up their career. I just want them to feel like they had enough and that it wasn't left out.
So before even coming to SMU, I was kind of like a nerdy kid that was just planning every single step and what I wanted to do. And before I even stepped foot on campus, I realized that more than anything else, I really wanted to help students. And that's been evident in every single role that I've played on campus. Now, I've mentioned that I wear different hats and people have said, oh, I see you everywhere. And I do a lot of volunteering, whether it's food room, keep it social, and just other volunteering opportunities as well. I do them simply because I want to help people, simply because I want to impact students positively. Now, I could spend my time doing something else, like I could spend my time reading or playing the piano, but I decide to choose to help students. I decide to choose to make a difference. And that should show you that it's not really about my legacy, it's what the impact I made on students, the changes that I could have made, the changes that I do end up making. And I do take that very seriously because I genuinely care about what students think and I want them to have a really good university experience. So similar to my experience in university, luckily I have been lucky enough to have really good experiences in university and I want that for students. I don't want it to just be a situation where it's only limited to certain students that have these experiences. That's why I volunteer. That's why I show up. I already mentioned in the past that I show up and I go to different events just for that representation, just to make sure
That's your
that I am
time.
there to serve students.
Okay. So before we leave, I want to say a couple of quick things. First of all, there's a board of directors debate just like this tomorrow night. Be great to see you guys here. And if you have questions, I'm also going to be here. If there's any questions you have procedurally or anything, just let me know. I'll stick around for a few minutes. And now I'm going to give these guys a chance. They each get a minute and a half to just say, here's the question I ask. Everybody's going to leave here tonight. What's the one thing that you want them to remember about you? Okay. Pardon? The order is Augustine, Lisa, Aiden.
So could you repeat the question?
The question is, when everybody leaves here and they can only remember one thing about everything you said tonight, one thing about you, what's the one thing you want them to remember?
Well, besides the fact that I love dad jokes and I'm obsessed with them, one thing that I want students to know when I leave here is that I'm not just doing this to add another title to my cap, to add another feather to my cap. I'm doing this because I genuinely want to make a change. I've seen the impact that SMUSA has had on my university experience. I've seen the different policies, the different things that enact, the different things that past presidents have done. In my very first semester, I didn't even know anything about SMUSA, but I came to this presidential debate exactly 2 years ago when Sheree was running. I was also here last year for Simba's presidential debate, and I saw the different policies that they brought, and I saw how they're impacting students. So if there's one thing that I would want you to remember is that I am doing this because I care about students. I'm not just doing it for the sake of it. I'm not just doing it to add another title. I'm doing this because I genuinely care about students, and my character, I would let my character and who I am speak for itself so that you students see through all of us candidates, whether we're just making false promises, whether we actually plan on enacting all the things that we've said here. You are the deciders. You make the decision. You elect us. So I would just want you to know that I'm not just here for the sake of it, and I want you to see that. Thank you.
I'll stand up for this one. I want you to leave here with like full clarity with everything that we've presented. Who do you think has given you the most solutions, and who do you think has the integrity, and who do you trust to follow through with them. I would like to think I do. But if you're someone who's not active on campus and you don't show up and you don't know what societies are, you don't know what I'm talking about, ask someone who is active. Ask them if they've seen Tina, me, or Aiden, and then ask them about us. Ask them about our character. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if I'm an RA or like I'm in a food room. It depends on character. So I would just say, think about who you believe in and who gives you like good vibes, because I think at the end of the day your heart does tell you so much about who's doing it for the resume and who's doing it just because they care about it. Now, just like to reiterate again, I've been here for a year and I was going to stand up like in the second month because I saw the issues. Now that I've been here for a year, I'm still like, I have so many issues I can't even bring up because again, diplomacy. But I see you and I see your issues because I'm one of the person who faces them because of my involvement on campus. But also stalk our LinkedIn, see if we're involved, see if you see truth in us, and also find us on our Instagram so you know who we are. Don't just go off of the posters. They're boring, they're bland, whatever. Know about us. That's all I would say. Thank you.
So I feel like for me, I haven't done the best tonight. Very nervous about all of this, but I know for myself that I truly do care about, the involvement of like engagement and, student life. I really do cherish that. And I would really like to just improve that even further than what, Sheree and Simba has done. I want to make it so that I have no regrets and that everyone else has no regrets on, if they vote me or anyone else. I just want to ensure that SMU and SMUSA is a proper place for everyone and that they have zero regrets leaving SMU, that they were completely fulfilled. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess that's the end. Is it then, Simon and Angelica? Yeah, okay. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, guys. It takes courage to do this. I applaud you. It's a lot easier to be someone who, does things in the shadows and is anonymous, and those people don't count. People like you count, and thank you. See you guys tomorrow.